What's going on, everybody? It's me, Ben Cornett, and welcome to another episode of Have At It. It is a live episode. We're here on the Ben Zone and Facebook, and also on my YouTube channel at Ben Cornett 9015. It is Have At It episode 105. Tonight, we're going to discuss, give you my reaction to week 2 of the NFL, and also we're going to preview week 3 of the NFL. And also, normally I drop a video every week for Ben's quick picks. It's just a little short video, but I thought, you know what? Why don't we just do it live this week? And as you know, if you've seen Ben's quick picks, uh, the last couple years I've picked every game every week, but this year I changed it up a little bit. Want to do something a little different, kind of random. I'm just gonna pick 5 games out of this little cup I got here. I know, fancy smancy, right? Um, of the 5 games that are going to be in week 3, and I'll just pick them at random and then give you who I think will win those games in that week. So we're going to do that in a little bit, but let's get started with my week 2 reaction. It was quite a week. Obviously, my Buccaneers pulled out a big win in Houston Monday night. 20-19 over the Houston Texans. Quite a game. I mean, my goodness, it's one of those games where like it's so much fun. If your team's not playing, it's fun to watch, but when it is, it's fun to watch, but it's also nerve-wracking because this is your team, you want to see them win and everything. Um but hey, the Bucks pulled it out. Baker, that last drive, Baker Mayfield was not going to be denied. He was determined to take that team down the field. Uh, we got the win. Rashad White got the game-winning touchdown. Uh, it was a close game, closer than well, we knew it was going to be close. I mean, Houston was actually favored, 1.5 points, but I felt like Tampa Bay was the better team, more talented. Houston's talented as well, but I felt like their offensive line got some injuries, and also it's not been very good. Even going back to last year, and I said that last year that CJ Stroud was going to struggle with an offensive line, but you know, also CJ Stroud, it's kind of on him too. He credit our defense for getting to him. We were able to get some sacks. Um, really fluster him during the game, but you know, this Texans team, they got to get it together, and they're expected to win the division again, but now they're 0-2. Got their uh, first division game next week. They got to go up to Jacksonville, so we'll see how that plays out. But as far as the Bucks go, it was a big win for us. Especially with all the injuries. With guys like Tristan Wirfs being out, with Chris Godwin being out. We knew that before the season started. You know, even if we'd went 1-1, that would have been, I would deem that as a success because not having your top offensive player in Tristan Wirfs. Let's face it. I mean, the guy's probably the best left tackle in the NFL, arguably. I'm not just saying that because it's on the Bucks, but it's pretty much fact. Chris Godwin's one of the better receivers in the league. You know, Not having those two to start the season, you would think, oh, the Bucks would be at a disadvantage. But luckily for us, the wide receiver group is, deep. Mike Evans, our rookie Emeka Ibuka, who got a touchdown in the game against Houston. He's now got 3 touchdowns in 2 games. What a good start for him. Um, if I had some, any kind of negatives on the game, I would say that the special teams was terrible. Uh, McLaughlin missed a field goal again. He has one job, by the way. Also, the fact that we had a blocked punt. Riley Dixon got blocked. Um, there's a questionable push in the back, you know, that led Houston to get a big return. They were able to take the lead uh, on that series, but then um, the Bucks were able to drive down the field the last, play of the game. They were able to get it. Uh, I will say that one of the things I would like to see this Bucks team do starting this week is to get turnovers. Levante dropped one right in his hands. Zion McCollum's dropped a few this year, both this game and the game against Atlanta. We're getting to the quarterback, but we're not creating the turnovers. And Todd Bowles talked about it. All training camp long, he wants ball hawks and stuff, and those are big. If we would have gotten those turnovers, I think we could have put the game away a lot sooner. But in the end, we prevailed, got the W, and then now we're heading into week 3 against the Jets. We'll preview week 3, our game, and other games in a little bit. But other games going on right that happened in week 2, we all saw that the Lions, made a statement beating the Bears 52-21. That was just an ass whipping. The Lions took it personal, and for the Bears, I mean, my goodness, defensively it was terrible. They don't have Jalen Johnson, obviously, in the backfield. You just wonder, like, is it going to get better for the Bears? They're 0-2 now. Caleb Williams, he's had good moments. He's made some plays, but he's also missed a lot of targets. And Ben Johnson, you can kind of see it on the sideline. He's not too happy about that. That was just an annihilation. And ever since that fourth quarter of the Monday night game against Minnesota, Bears have just struggled defensively. They can't get off the field on third downs. I watched a lot of that game, obviously, because the Bucks were playing Monday night, so I got to see a lot of that game, and it was just, if you're a Bears fan, you got to be beyond frustrated. You felt like, okay, you got a new head coach. It's a new year. The offensive line's supposed to improve. We made all those free agent signings, but so far we haven't seen the results. And they got Dallas this week. That's a big game as well. So, and speaking of Dallas, that overtime game against the Giants, winning that game 40-37. For the Giants, it's got to be disappointing. I mean, especially when you led most of the way, you played well offensively. Russell Wilson, had a nostalgia act like he was the old Russell Wilson in Seattle. Just torched that secondary. Neighbors got a couple touchdowns, but also Russell in overtime turned the ball over, and the Cowboys were able to get Brandon Aubrey in the field goal range, kick the game-winning field goal to win that 40-37. Again, both these teams defensively are not very good right now. Giants got to play KC Sunday night, but for Dallas, they got to go to Chicago. It's Chicago's a desperate team. Dallas, just snuck out a win. We'll see how that plays out. Some other games on Sunday, or we'll talk about the Thursday night game. The Packers defeated the Commanders. That was what, 27-18, I believe the score was. Right now, Green Bay looks good. They look like an elite football team. Now, again, it's just 2 games. They haven't been on the road yet. So they play Cleveland Sunday. That'll be interesting. They should win that game. They're a heavy favorite in that game. But so far, their defense has played well. Micah Parsons has made a difference. They were able to get to Jaden Daniels throughout the game. Just the defense was, didn't give him any rhythm going, with the throws, or didn't give him any running lanes to, and if he got, out in the open field, he didn't get very much yardage on the run. So they did a great job of just shutting down Jaden and, not getting him into a flow. And, also the Commanders couldn't run the ball that well. So, kudos to Green Bay's defense. But again, it's early. We'll see how it plays out. We're not going to crown them champs yet. We got to see more of Green Bay. Again, they had 2 home games. Destroyed the Lions, beat the Commanders. Now you got to go on the road, play the Browns this week. So we'll see how that plays out. Some other games going on. The Broncos and Colts. That was quite a game. Surprising Colts 2-0. That's a great start for them. Daniel Jones, kind of a resurgence. Now, will that carry over throughout the year? Yeah, maybe. We don't know yet. The offensive line's been really good for Indy. Daniel Jones hasn't really, maybe he's only been sacked maybe a couple times. That's it. But for the most part, he's gotten the ball out of his hands quick. The running game's helped a lot. Jonathan Taylor looks like the rookie Jonathan Taylor. So if they get anything out of him, man, this team, they can go a long way in that division. So, and then obviously, with Denver, you look at the defense, it really hasn't quite been as great as it was last year. Will that change? Perhaps. They got the Chargers Sunday. That's a big game in the division, AFC West. The Colts, they got to go to Tennessee. It's a division game there. I expect the Colts to win that game. The Titans, who hung in there with the Rams in the first half, but the second half, the Rams took care of business. So, the Titans, Cam Ward's going to be good. It's just not, he just doesn't have the talent around him. The offensive line isn't great. So it's going to take some time, but I do think the Cam Ward's going to get better and better. And the team, is in a rebuilding phase. So, he's going to have to go, take his licks and just go through the motions. So, but this week I do expect the Colts to win that game against the Titans as well. And speaking of the Rams, they got a big game Sunday at Philadelphia. It's a huge game. And speaking of Philly, went to KC, won that game 20-17. It's quite a game. KC, we knew they'd keep it close. I mean, I picked Philly to win that game. Got that one right. I think that was one of my picks from last week, my 5 picks. So, yeah, Philly, they're looking good. Would I say they're looking like a Super Bowl team? I don't know about that. Again, with it's not like Jalen's lighting up the world right now. They're really running the ball a lot with Saquon Barkley, and why not? He's one of the best running backs in the league. And of course, they're tush pushing as usual. Got a touchdown out of that. So, for Philly, it's a big game against the Rams Sunday. So we'll see how that plays out, and we'll might as well preview week 3 of the NFL. So we'll start with the Thursday night game. One that I think we all know it's probably not going to be very good. The Dolphins and the Bills. And Miami just, they hung in there with New England, but, they just couldn't get the job done against the Patriots on Sunday. That defense isn't very good. Buffalo, meanwhile, beat the Jets pretty handily. And, now they got a home game with the Dolphins. The Bills will win that game. Plain and simple. And, I think Mike McDaniels, it's slowly coming to an end for him, unfortunately. It's just not going to work out. So that's the Thursday night game. A lot of good games this week. The Rams and Eagles is huge. I really looking forward to that game. But they're playing at the same time as the Bucks and the Jets. The Jets travel to Tampa. They're 0-2. Bucks are 2-0. The Jets will be without Justin Fields. That was just announced today by head coach Aaron Glenn. He will not play this week. He's out with a concussion. I think we kind of knew that going in this week, when he left the game early Sunday. So Tyrod Taylor's going to be the starting quarterback. He's a serviceable backup, but I do expect the Bucks to win that game. Our talent's a lot better. I know it's a short week, but the Jets right now, defensively, they're not very good, and that was supposed to be one of their strengths, was their defense, and so far that hasn't shown up. And hopefully, as a Bucks fan, that doesn't show up this week. So, um, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of games going on. The Broncos Chargers, as I mentioned, a big AFC West showdown. Uh, Chargers are 2-0. They came off a big win Monday night against the Raiders. Picked that one to win. Chargers look good. Justin Herbert, I know I said it, he was a bit overrated, but might have to eat my words. He's played well so far. You got to give him credit. Defensively, they're getting after it. Derwin James really playing well right now. They did get an injury. Khalil Mack left the game early, had an elbow injury, and we just found out the news that he's going to miss several weeks. He's going to go on IR with an elbow injury. So that could be a big factor, not having Khalil Mack defensively. So we'll see how that plays out. But and speaking of injuries, with the Bucks, unfortunately we lost Kalijah Cansey for the season with a torn pec. So he's going to have surgery on that. So that's huge. They're going to, obviously probably start Elijah Roberts there in his place. Roberts is serviceable, but again, he's no Kalijah Cansey. And it's too bad because Cansey, last couple years he's missed some games with some injuries. You just hope that this is not a reoccurrence and that going forward this won't be the norm, but a lot of times injuries happen and some players are just injury prone. It's disappointing. I won't say that Kalijah is, well, I probably would at this point because now 3 years in a row he's not going to play a full season. So yeah, it's disappointing, but it's next man up. That's the mentality. And also Luke Radecki, he probably not going to play this week. He's got a foot injury as well. So probably going to see Charlie Heck start there on the right tackle. It's going to be tough. But again, the Bucks, they have to navigate that and, next man up mentality and just keep doing what they're doing. They're 2-0 right now. The Jets this week, then they got a big showdown next week against the Philadelphia Eagles. And we all know this week the Bucks will be wearing their 1976 creamsicle jerseys. It's the 50th anniversary, so that'll be fun to watch to see them in their old uniforms. I know some fans, kind of, iffy because they haven't won in those jerseys, but it doesn't matter. I think it's great to see the nostalgia and see them wear the white jerseys because every time we've done the nostalgia thing the last few years, the Bucks, they've always worn the creamsicles. So it'll be the first time they've worn the white jersey with the orange numbers, the red lining, since the old days. So it'll be cool to watch. Can't wait to see it. And they'll also wear those in a couple weeks when they go to Seattle to play the Seahawks because the Bucks entered the same season as the Seahawks, which is 1976. So Seahawks are going to wear their throwback jerseys as well. So that'll be interesting. It'll be fun to see. And then the Bucks will wear the creamsicles Thursday night game against the Falcons. I believe it's the first week of December. So yeah, it'll be fun. A lot of nostalgia there, especially for the old school Bucks fans. It'll be very cool to watch. But we'll get back to the games here. We got one I'm looking forward to this week. It's the afternoon game. This one's, I think, it's going to be a fun game. The Cardinals at the 49ers. Now, Arizona defeated Carolina on Sunday, 27-22. Almost gave that game away. They're up 27-9 in the fourth quarter. Kyler throws just a dumb throw, like just floats it up in the air, gets picked. The Panthers scored 15 straight points and, made it a game. And by the way, Carolina's regressed. I thought they were going to be better, but so far they've been disappointing. Bryce Young's kind of reverted back to his rookie season, just making some bad plays, holding the ball too long. It's a little disappointing, I gotta say. But Carolina's got to play Atlanta this week. Um, so the Falcons uh, redeemed themselves this past Sunday night, beating the Vikings. Uh, Low scoring game. No touchdowns in that game, or they did have a touchdown. Yeah, Atlanta did. They scored one late. Um, but the Falcons defense came to play. They got to JJ McCarthy, the rookie. Now JJ's out for a couple weeks with a sprained ankle, so Carson Wentz is going to come in there. So we'll see how that plays out. They got to play the Bengals, who, by the way, we all know now, Joe Burrow's out. Turf toe has got the surgery. It's going to miss at least 3 months, but I would say it's pretty much over for the season. They're going to have Jake Browning at quarterback. I don't know how far he can take them. They're 2-0, luckily, right now, but I still don't see the Bengals in the playoffs. You got to have Joe Burrow out there. And, their defense, again, it's not very good. It's just not. So, yeah, but back to the Cardinals and 49ers, I think it's going to be a heck of a game. The Niners are 2-0, defeated Seattle, and then went to New Orleans, beat the Saints. Mac Jones looked like kind of the Mac Jones of New England. He actually probably played his best game of his career. But it helps when you got a guy like Christian McCaffrey carrying the load. He ran the ball well. The Niners defense pretty good against the Saints. And it's New Orleans, they're not very good. Spencer Radler, I'm sorry. I mean, the guy hasn't won a start yet. I'd think about benching him. I just at this point, I mean, he's not going to get any better. He's what he is. I mean, even in college, I thought he was a bit overrated. He was at Oklahoma, then he went to South Carolina. He had moments, but he's just I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. Starting quarterback. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. And you're seeing why. He just makes a lot of mistakes, especially, and he gets greedy too with the football, tries to make plays that aren't there. So, yeah. But the Niners, this is a big game for both teams, both 2-0. Whoever wins is going to take over the division lead. Kyler, he's got to just take care of the ball. That's all he's got to do. James Conner's got to run the ball. He's got weapons. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. So the offense is there. The offensive line's a little bit better for Arizona this year. So it should be a heck of a game. I cannot wait for that game. That's one of my low-key games. Good games that I can't wait to see. So speaking of that, we might as well do our Ben's quick picks. And like I said, if you haven't seen the show yet, what I do, this is new this year, is I will be picking 5 games out of this cup right here. Just 5 random games. I don't know what they're going to be. So, and then I'll give you my pick for the game. And I did pick, I got my list here of all the games that I picked who I think is going to win this week. But I'm going to pick just 5 out of a little cup. And we might as well get it started. So, with that being said, let's do this. So, here's the cup right here. I'm going to shake it up a little bit here. See what we got. And let's see. Here's the first game. One sec. We got, oh, wow, big game here. Rams at Eagles. This is a big game. For both teams, they're both 2-0. The Rams looked very well, against the Titans last week. Had quite a game against the Texans. The Eagles, meanwhile, beat Dallas the opening night, Thursday night game, then beat the Chiefs on the road. This was a tough game to pick, but I'm actually going to go with the Rams. This is my upset pick here. I got the Rams over the Eagles in this game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be probably low scoring because both defenses are pretty good. But, the Rams, I think, are going to get them in the end. And the Eagles beat them twice last year. So once in the regular season and once in the playoffs, and the Rams were this close to beating them in the postseason. So, and they were the only team that came close because you remember Eagles blew out the Packers, blew out the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, and they just destroyed, KC in the Super Bowl. So the Rams were the one team that gave them a game. So I'm gonna go Rams over the Eagles. That is my upset pick of the week. So that was a good one that I picked out. So yeah, now I'm gonna pick the second game of the 5 random games. So here we go. Here we go. All right. Let's see. This one. Ooh, Bengals at the Vikings. There it is. Yep. Bengals at the Vikings. This was a tough one to pick because you got 2 backup quarterbacks starting. Jake Browning for the Bengals, Carson Wentz for the Vikings. You know, the Bengals have weapons. The Vikings have weapons. You know, you're seeing 2 of the top maybe 5 receivers in the league with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. But for me, this comes down to defense. And Minnesota is at home for this game. Last week, the Vikings defense played okay, but they couldn't stop the run. And Cincinnati is not a great running team, but they are great at defensively in the backfield. They should have some of their players back. I know Harrison Smith had an illness last week, so he should be ready to go this week. I think that'll make a big difference. I'm taking the Vikings at home. Their defense is going to step up. So I like Minnesota over Cincinnati. So now we're going to pick the third game out of the 5. Here we go. This one is Dolphins at the Bills. I'm picking the Bills. I think that's an easy pick right there. You know, they're just a better team right now. They're a Super Bowl contender, better quarterback, Josh Allen. James Cook is running the ball very well this year. You know, it's Miami. I mean, I'm sure for maybe like a quarter they're gonna show up. You know, it's a division game, so they're gonna play extra hard, but you know, the disparity between these 2 teams talent wise is huge. And we got the better coach in Doug McDermott too over Mike McDaniel. Like I said, but McDaniel, I mean, this is probably his last year anyways, so before they let him go. I hope this is a good game, you know, for a Thursday night game. I hope it's somewhat competitive, but I think Buffalo's going to win by at least 2 scores. So give me the Bills over the Dolphins Thursday night. All right, pick our 4th pick out of the 5. Game number 4. We got 2 more to go here, so let's see. We got, oh, look at this. The Broncos and the Chargers. See it right there? Yeah, kind of blurry. Okay, Broncos and Chargers. Another great game. You know, AFC West showdown. Chargers 2-0, Denver 1-1. It's in LA at SoFi. I'm going to go with the Chargers here. I think, you know, they've been playing really well offensively. You know, Justin Herbert's been the better quarterback of the 2 thus far. Bo Nix has been kind of up and down. And, you know, this is 2 weeks in a row that Denver's on the road. Probably should have won last week against the Colts if they didn't have that penalty late. You know, that, you know, when the Colts kicker missed a 60-yarder, but then got the 15-yard penalty for the touch in the center during the kick. So 15 yards, made it a 45-yarder. The Colts kicker made it, won the game for him. But it's going to be a tough game, division game. Like I said, Denver's defense hasn't been great like it was last year. It hasn't shown up yet. And the Chargers, again, offensively, they've been on a roll, and defensively too. Although losing Khalil Mack's going to be huge, but I still like the Chargers here at home. I think they're going to beat the Broncos in a close game. I could see it being like a 23-20 type of game. It'll be close throughout, but I'm going to give the edge to the Chargers on that one. And then finally, we're going to pick the last one here of the 5, these random games. Hope it's a good one, too. It is the Colts and Titans. Indianapolis at Tennessee. Again, I mentioned earlier, Cam Ward, I think he's going to do some great stuff in the NFL. He'll be a good quarterback, but right now the talent level isn't there. The experience isn't there. And meanwhile, Indy, with Daniel Jones, he's, playing very well. His offensive line has protected him. The running game has been very helpful to him. When the Giants went to the playoffs a few years ago, Daniel Jones had Saquon Barkley, and that made a big difference. And so far this year, Jonathan Taylor's ran the ball very well. Defensively, they've been solid as well. So they can get to the quarterback. They got the Bo Nix a couple times in the game against Denver this past week. So Cam Ward, his offensive line's not nearly as good. So I got the Colts. I think they're going to beat the Titans in this game. I could see them winning maybe by more than one score here. See it maybe double digits. Again, right now the Colts, their trajectory's up, and the Titans, their trajectory is, rebuilding, and hopefully down the stretch they'll try and win some games. But this week's just not the week. So give me the Colts over the Titans. So one more time, Ben's quick picks. I got the Rams upsetting the Eagles in Philly. I got the Vikings beating the Bengals in the matchup of the backup quarterbacks. I got the Thursday night, hopefully it's a good game, Dolphins and Bills. Got the Bills over the Dolphins. I got the AFC West showdown Sunday afternoon, good game. Broncos and Chargers. I got the Chargers over the Broncos. And I got the Colts over the Titans in the AFC South matchup. So those are Ben's quick picks right there. I'm 9-1 so far on my quick picks. Now my overall record, picking every game, I'm 23-9. So had a good week, 13-3. I did pick Denver. Should have won, damn it. I also had Seattle beating Pittsburgh. I don't know. I was thinking there, and I lost one other one. Forget which one that was, but I was 13-3. But the Vikings. I picked them over the Falcons. Maybe it's my bias. I think the Falcons are overrated. I still think they are. I got to see more out of Atlanta. They should beat Carolina this week. I got them beating Carolina, especially if that defense played as good as it did against Minnesota. Michael Penix, I think he's going to be a great quarterback. If he can stay healthy, that's the key. In college, he had those 2 torn ACLs. But man, he can get the ball out. He can just sling it, and he's got the running game. He's got Bijan Robinson. He's got Tyler Algier. So, we know what they're like. The Bucs know we beat them. Luckily, their run game didn't show up against us, but I'm sure when we play them in December, it's going to be there. So, I got Atlanta over Carolina. So I'm 9-1 so far. Hopefully, I can keep it going with these 5 random picks. Should be a very good week 3. Like I said, I think the best matchups are going to be the Rams and Eagles in the morning slate, and then the Broncos and Chargers in the afternoon slate, along with the 49ers and Cardinals. Should be some good games. And I didn't even talk about the Monday night game, the Ravens and Lions, Detroit going to Baltimore. I am picking Baltimore to win that game. So, it'll be a good game, but I just think Baltimore's just a little bit better defensively right now than Detroit. So it should be a good game Monday night. So that's pretty much all I got for this week here on Have At It, episode 105. And remember, Give me a like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015. Greatly appreciate that. You've seen this on the Ben Zone on Facebook as well. Then Ben's Quick Picks. Normally I drop a video every week, but I thought since I'm live this week, every Wednesdays, when I do Ben's Quick Picks, I thought, well, why don't we just do the video live, do a live version of that. So I'm not saying I'll do a live version every week, but if I'm able to get on for an episode to have at it, if my schedule permits me to, I will do a live version of it. So check that out as well. And that's all I got for this week, man. This should be a very fun week in the NFL. The Bucks play the Jets. Hopefully, we can get this win here. We should. Hoping the Kancey injury doesn't affect us long term. You never want to take an opponent lightly. So I expect the Jets are going to be ready to play because they're 0-2 and they're looking for their first win. So we got to be prepared. We got to be, on our toes at all times. Todd Bowles will get them ready. So, Baker's competitive. They know the deal, especially with next week being a huge game, playing the Philadelphia Eagles. You don't want to overlook the Jets. So, I don't think we should. I don't think we will. But yeah, this should be a fun week, especially with the white creamsicle jerseys coming back. Should be fun to see on TV. So that's all I got, man. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in here on Have At It, episode 105, and a little live Ben's Quick Picks. Greatly appreciate it. And I'm out. So guys, take care. Have a great NFL Week 3 weekend. And I will see you next time right here on Have At It. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.